Hi, thank you for joining today's call. We are talking all things salmon with Casey. So she sent out the Coach's Corner email yesterday, and I think there can be a lot of confusion around like, how do I eat salmon? Do I eat wild or farmed? Which is better? What are the differences? And so Casey's going to go through that today in just discussion, and then we're going to talk through some of our favorite ways to eat salmon because I think it can feel a little bit overwhelming if it's not something you're used to eating. So, and also maybe you can highlight, I don't know if you're already planning on it, why? Like, why are we even talking about salmon? Why do we want to eat salmon? Some of the benefits there we can discuss too. So,
Yeah.
thank you for joining, and I will give the time over to Coach Kacey.
All right. Let's see. Oh no. Nope, that's the wrong one. I think. Um, there. Can everyone see this?
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, spoiler alert, everyone. Today we're talking about fish, specifically about salmon. It's something that a lot of us coaches are talking to our clients about, not just recently, but in general. It's one of those food groups that I think people tend to be very averse to, or maybe just not exposed to in general, right? I know that especially like when I was growing up, not a lot of people ate fish for whatever reason. It's becoming more mainstream. But today we're going to talk about specifically about salmon, why it's good for you, and the debate of wild versus farmed. So, very simply, if you didn't know, there are two ways. There are two like different types of like broad categories of salmon that you can buy in a grocery store or at a market. And one of those is wild caught. So that's like, fishing boats going out to sea for the most part and catching salmon. The other one is farmed, where salmon are essentially like specifically bred and raised within like I don't know if you guys have ever seen it before, but if you Google it, they're like these huge buckets, basically. Bucket doesn't even do it justice, but there are these huge kind of farming or housing areas. They're still in the ocean, but it's a much more kind of controlled process. And these salmon are bred and raised specifically to be like fished and distributed as food. All right. And then there's always a big debate, like what's better for you, um, wild or farmed fish. And so we're going to go over some of that today, but I'm going to kind of go backwards a little bit to start. And if you guys get nothing else from this community call today, or if you hear nothing else today, just know that the differences between wild and farmed are so nuanced and they are so minuscule compared to the grander scheme of things, which is try and eat some fatty fish in your diet, right? If you want to get nitpicky and you like to nerd out about your food, awesome. This will help you understand that a little bit more. But kind of step one is trying to get any sort of fatty fish into your diet. Fatty fish, salmon is the most common one. All right. Other ones are sardines, mackerel, herring, anchovies, oysters. Which ones did I forget, guys? Anything?
No,
I
that's
think
it.
I think that's it. And so obviously the most popular one is going to be salmon. So again, if you hear nothing else from today's call, just try and eat salmon. All right. Why are fatty fish so good? And part of that is based on the omega-3 fatty acid content. All right, which kind of gets us in more of the dialogue of, hey, this farm versus wild debate. So omega-3 fatty acids are really healthy for our body. They're highly anti-inflammatory. They have a lot of kind of heart health benefits as well. Most of us eating a general American diet have a lot of omega-6 fatty acids in our intake. Those kinds of things come from a lot of like seed oils. And it's not that omega-6s are bad and omega-3s are good, and that we should eliminate sixes. It's that the ratio of kind of, again, the average like American diet is way off, right? So our omega-6s are really high, our omega-3s are usually generally low. And that leads to a lot of flourishing of inflammation in our bodies. All right. So the whole idea is to try to bring that omega-3 level up a little bit higher, right? And the best way to do that is eating fatty fish, including salmon. All right. There's also like some research about omega-3 fatty acids being really helpful for type 2 diabetes control, logical brain development. So especially in like in utero. So like if you are pregnant, being able to eat a lot of fatty fish and ingesting omega-3 fatty acids can help with the neurological and like brain development of your baby. So some cool info there. All right, so what we're really talking about today though is wild versus farm. So in terms of like nutrient content, like what's the nutritional difference between the two? Wild salmon early is higher in omega. What's Michaela?
You cut out for a second, but I think we're good now.
You're good? Okay. So wild salmon is generally known to be higher in the omega-3 fatty acids than farmed salmon. Farmed salmon tends to have a higher fat content in general, but not necessarily those fatty acids. Farmed salmon, yeah, it still provides those fatty acids. That's why I'm saying like the difference between them is like super nuanced. Wild salmon tends to be like decently more expensive. I'm kind of jumping around here. Let me go down here. Oh, and this is not loading for me anymore. Okay. So we'll just stick to environmental impact. So there's a debate like both ways. Like people think that, you know, farmed salmon ends up producing a lot more pollution than otherwise if you weren't farming salmon. And so that like overall environmental impact has some people not wanting to go kind of the farm salmon route. You can debate that wild salmon, there's an environmental impact there as well. But for the most part, right, as long as there aren't issues of overfishing, which of course there are some places, environmentally it's just got a smaller footprint overall than like the whole kind of industry that it takes to farm salmon. Health factors, because farm salmon is kind of grown within like a confined area. It's been shown that like different kinds of pesticides and diseases can spread more easily. A lot of those things tend to be monitored really closely, obviously to prevent the spread of disease and things like that, but it's still possible, while wild salmon usually doesn't contain quite as many contaminants. All right. Accessibility and cost. So this is kind of what I was going to earlier. So wild salmon, it's more expensive across the board. It's also lower in supply, so it's a little bit of a supply and demand issue. But also there are properties that people could say, right, that wild salmon nutritionally is more dense, right, in terms of the good stuff than the farm salmon, causing it to be a little bit more expensive. I will say though, if you are at market and you're looking to buy salmon, I would say don't feel stressed or guilty by any means of buying farm salmon. I personally eat it all the time. If I'm feeling fancy, I will get the wild salmon at the market, but I personally eat more farmed just because it's more It's flat out, it's more cost friendly for me, and I tend to eat a lot of it. So if I were like a once a month salmon eater, I would probably spring for the wild stuff. I'm more of a daily or every other day salmon eater, so I usually go for the farm stuff, which just takes me back to the point at the beginning. It's nuanced. You're not a bad person for buying farmed or for splurging for the wilds, just kind of a situational or something that is just a decision on your part, and it's not really a good or a bad thing. All right.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of like
The best,
organic,
however, is with
organic or
yeah, it's kind of
conventional
like
produce, right? Or other
sure,
meats.
right? Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the whole like grass fed versus non
Yes,
debate, right? Can you really
exactly.
argue that grass fed is better?
Yes.
Maybe in certain situations, but like a
Yeah.
flat
Are we
out,
talking financially
like kind
better?
of
Yeah.
not so much. All right. And so that's just kind of what I'm talking about down here, right? It's really a personal preference thing, budget, availability. I think all in all, try to eat the salmon. I think us coaches are going to talk a little bit about what some of our favorite ways of eating salmon are, because I know that can be a little bit of a hurdle for some people. And there are lots of ways to go about eating salmon. But we would love for our community just to kind of get into more of the fatty fish and reducing inflammation and eating more kind of nutrient dense foods that go beyond just, okay, what are your macros, right? They do more than that for us. The only other thing is, before kind of we share how we like to eat our salmon, last summer I took a trip actually to see Henrietta in Oslo. And Henrietta, I forget if you've been to that restaurant or not, but there's a restaurant literally called The Salmon.
Yeah,
And
I've been
they sell salmon all, yeah, in all different types of forms. But the cool thing is that you order whatever you want, and then there's like a mini museum inside of the restaurant where they show you like different, like a documentary basically on the farming industry and the wild caught industry. And I just thought it was very unique and interesting, especially like some of the best salmon in the world is from Norway. So that was pretty special. But
Yeah, that's
um
different, like in Norway, because I grew up with eating salmon at least once a week for dinner. Like that is just in Norway, fish is in everyone's diet more or less. Like both cod and salmon and seafood in general is something we eat on the weekly. So it's very dependent on, of course, where in the world you're from.
sure. Sure. And these days, I mean, it used to be like, oh, you don't live near a body of water. Like, is the seafood actually that good? And I mean, the way that food is transported these days, like it very much can be. It may not be, but like you can be very landlocked and still have access to good produce, good seafood. So, but Michaela or Henrietta, do you guys want to maybe share your favorite salmon recipes or ways to eat it?
I can share how usually I eat. I'm a pretty simple person when it comes to food, but so usually how I do with my salmon is just put it in the oven. I usually have it in my freezer because I just buy a ton of different protein sources. So usually like it just goes in the freezer. So with the salmon, I just take it out and usually I just put it in the oven frozen, and then I just let it like slowly cook from a frozen position, if I'm gonna say it like that, and just have it in there like 20 minutes or so. I like it. I don't want it dry, so I would rather have it a little bit, towards the raw than the dry. And I have it with a salad. I love like mango, avocado, like just keeping it really simple. I usually also make quite a lot when I do make it. So for me, just I can eat that cold. Like I can have it cold also if I have it the next day, for example. Sometimes I put some like mustard on, just basically just because that's a sauce that is, doesn't eat up my calories. So that's a great way. But yeah, keeping it really simple, or smoked salmon. That's, having smoked salmon with scrambled eggs. That is delish. And some cantaloupe, melon, and avocado. Like that's, I could eat that for every meal of the day. So yeah, I would say those are my ways. And sushi, of course.
When you roast it, Henrietta, what seasonings do you usually like to put on it?
I usually just have salt and pepper. Yeah,
super
I
simple.
keep it really simple. Yeah.
Right. I will do a lot of like canned salmon because I'll do canned, or I'll buy the frozen fillets like at Costco, just because if I know we're going to make salmon that night, then, and I happen to be at the grocery store, then maybe I'll get like a fillet of salmon, but that's just so rare that I'm at the store and I know what we're having for dinner that night. And so usually I've had too many times where like we haven't used it and I'm so sad. So I like to buy it frozen. Then it just is in the fillets, super easy. I'll take it out and I'll thaw mine usually, and then I'll roast it. And I'll look up different types of things. I've done like a brown sugar rub. It's like minimal brown sugar. And now I can't even remember what else was on it. I have a few. I'll send out a few different types of like rubs that I've done, but usually I'll keep it simple and just do something with lemon, like usually if lemon juice, salt, pepper, and then just roast it. And I usually will roast it. We just got a Blackstone, so I have wanted to try like kind of like grilling it. We've smoked it before too. I feel like you really can't go wrong. It just depends on the time of year. If I want to put it in the oven, if it's like winter, I don't want to go outside. If it's more spring or summer, then I might want to smoke it or put it on the griddle outside. So we'll do that for dinner.
Like on the grill. Putting it like in foil on the grill and have some veggies in there can be like delicious. Yeah.
That sounds delicious.
Air fryer as well works really well.
I've done it a lot. Those individual fillets I like because I can just throw them in the air fryer if I want to have like an actual fillet of salmon. And then I like the leftovers too. I'm the same as you. But I would say most often, just because this is a busy season of life, I will just get canned salmon and I'll make it like I would make tuna fish sandwiches. I'll just do salmon, a little bit of mayo. I get, just kind of depends. I think it's the Sir Kensington's, I think is the brand that I like. Or there's the paleo one. I can't remember what it is. Anyways, I'll do a little bit of mayo and I will do a lot of mustard. I'm a mustard girl. And I'll do seasoning, salt, and pickles. So just those 4 ingredients and mix it up. If we have celery, I might chop some celery, but usually I'm not that fancy. And I will eat it with crackers. I love the Simple Mills garlic and herb crackers. It's just like such a good combo. Or I'll do it on sourdough toast and just pile up a ton of salmon on the toast that way. And my kids will just eat it with a fork if I do it that way. Like they love it too. So it's nice to we'll usually do that on like Sunday lunches for the family. And then I eat it. I'm having that today for lunch. It takes 2 minutes to just throw that together. And I know I'm getting in my omega-3s and it's easy and it's a pretty affordable option. We always just have a bunch of canned salmon in the pantry. So those are my go-tos. And then we will buy smoked salmon occasionally. That's something that I will buy because it lasts longer. And then also I love going to sushi anytime that we can. But that's not like a daily thing for us.
Poke bowls.
Oh, and then Christina said, and yes, poke bowl. Usually only if we're like traveling in Hawaii will I get that, but the best. Christina says, I took a salmon fillet on cedar planks on the grill. Amazon sells the planks, salmon rub from Savory Spice. Oh yeah, I have a salmon rub from Traeger also. It's like a wild fin rub and it's really good too. So I'll have to try that from Savory Spice. And the cedar plank. I haven't tried that either. So
I haven't done cedar plank in a long time, but that gives it like an awesome flavor. And it's just convenient on the grill because then it's not like sticking or falling through the like grills.
Yes. Is that an easy, I'm guessing? How do you clean those? Do you just like soap, just soap and water, just hand wash, probably the cedar planks.
Yeah.
I wonder, yeah, if the upkeep is hard. Someone will have to share that. But that's a great idea too.
You
And
guys, I have to throw this out there. So the salmon patties, the frozen salmon patties
Oh,
at
yes.
Costco
How could I forget about those?
that are, yes, do those. Throw
Do you do them
them
in the air
throw 'em on
fryer?
I do them on the air fryer, or I do them on the smoker. Make them like hamburgers, or I just do it like just a couple of patties at a time just to have them. Or now they have the packaged salmon, just kind of like the tuna package.
Oh
Now
yeah,
they have it in, yeah. So they have a 15 gram or a 30 gram serving, and
Where do you buy those?
Walmart.
Okay.
Walmart's the only place I can find them, but I know they're elsewhere. It's just for me where I'm at, I can just get them at Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't have those patties, I don't get my salmon servings in because they're so easy for me to do.
Those are so easy. And I just read, someone says I recently tried cutting up thawed filet into bite-sized pieces and using the air fryer. So delicious with some honey Dijon mustard brushed on top. Yes, I've done that too. If you Google
They're like
salmon
little
bites,
nuggets.
if you like look on Pinterest salmon bites, there's tons of recipes and they're like crispy when you chop them up like that, and it's so good. And
Just
then
try and take
Jess
the skin off the skin
yeah.
beforehand.
Yeah. Jess said she does tuna style also, poke bowl. Oh, she does tuna style like I do. And then the poke bowl from Vessel Kitchen is bomb. I think that's with ahi tuna though, isn't that, Jess? Do they have
You can
salmon?
get it with you can get it with salmon.
I've never done that. And then also she'll defrost fillets and cook stovetop with the Kerrygold butter, salt, pepper, lemon, and then they'll do salmon burgers with cottage cheese and mango salsa. That sounds really yummy. And then on the plank, you throw the plank out after you use them. Super easy to clean up. Soak the planks in water for 30 minutes to an hour. That's the Amazon
There you
planks.
go.
Cool.
Nice. And then the one thing
How do
that
you
was
do yours? Yeah, I was gonna say.
it was kind of mentioned here and there. But I know Griffin does this all the time. So at Costco, I buy the smoked salmon. It's farmed, all right. But it couldn't be easier. It comes in a double pack. You open it up and you just eat it. My kids love it. So when I need dinner and I haven't had time to do anything, or I just haven't planned anything, my kids will just eat some smoked salmon, right? And like whatever else we have on the side. It's usually a staple for my lunch. I'll do like some smoked salmon, cottage cheese, just for like a double duty on protein. And I'll have that with a fruit on a piece of whole grain toast. So I'll kind of make like an open face sandwich. So it's like toast, cottage cheese with some top, and it's delicious. That's been going strong for me for like a year.
Do you do capers?
And then
I see people do capers.
I don't love capers,
Yeah.
but they would definitely go.
Yeah.
Before.
Yum.
And then I also make like a salmon salad. So I buy the canned salmon, which canned salmon used to only be wild caught, but Michaela and I are
Just did
talking
some
before
research.
this call. Yes, and it's canned salmon. I think most of it is wild caught. For those wanting to know, not all of it. Like if it's called Atlantic salmon, it's farmed and not wild. So just kind of a thing to note there. But I will also take canned salmon and mix it up with some cottage cheese, like instead of mayo. And then I'll maybe put like some cranberries in there, some walnuts. I'll cut up some celery if I'm not feeling crazy. I eat it with either toast or crackers.
I do canned salmon with Greek yogurt and dry ranch mix.
That sounds good.
That does sound good. Yeah. One of my favorite things about salmon, other than like the nutritional aspects, is that no matter how you're eating it, it's actually really quick to prep, right? Like it's either raw, just eat it, or if you're cooking it, like the air fryer, the grill, the oven are all great options. And technically, like unless you're cooking it from frozen, which will take longer, like 10 minutes or less, and you're done. So it's really nothing you have to like labor over.
It also, when we're getting in a good, or I guess it's the ratio between the omega-3 and omega-6 perhaps, or just eating adequate omega-3s or fatty fish, your skin gets less sensitive to the sun as well. So that's another benefit of it. You're going to be
Yeah.
more tolerant towards the sun when you're having a good intake of fatty fish. So
It helps your body bring more melanin to the surface. So it provides like a protective layer. So if you're noticing you burn really easily in the summer, try upping your omega-3 fatty acids through foods and try eating salmon more. And then also if you're noticing like any skin issues like eczema, different things, then a lot of times that can stem from inflammation in our bodies, which having a higher omega-6 ratio is going to be, like Kacey said, definitely more inflammation in our bodies. And so that shows up a lot of times on our skin. So just not even like necessarily cutting out omega-6 foods, right? Just really focusing on adding in fatty fish and other high omega-3 foods and seeing how you feel, seeing if it helps improve symptoms. I've definitely noticed a big difference in myself and my family with that, and
I
clients
was
too.
thinking about when you said that, Casey, like I think like you can relate it to like how we think about protein. So when we have a client where the macro distribution is kind of, you know, a little off, and usually because protein intake is too low. So instead of then thinking about like decreasing carbs or decreasing fats, or like it's just like let's just focus on protein and then the rest will kind of work its own way. And this kind of, it's the same, like just focus on eating more salmon or other fatty fishes, and then that ratio between omega-3s and omega-6s are naturally just gonna, you know, improve.
Yeah.
Most
It's kind
likely.
of across the board too, right? With our clients, I'm sure you guys would agree. It's like you can focus on what you can add, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily need to take away. Not only is that mindset just a more positive one, but the rest seems to take care of itself.
Yeah,
Often it does.
absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing, and hopefully that answered some questions. I think it can be confusing as a consumer sometimes, and so that's a good rule of thumb. Like if it says Atlantic, it's probably farmed. No, it is farmed, I guess. If it says Atlantic, it's farmed. And so if you're like reading labels and you want to know, that can be confusing. So Alaskan salmon is usually wild caught. But that's something you can just kind of like read the label and you should be able to see if that's something that you care to know. And then also just know like adding more into your diet will only help. And same with like along with skin, like lowering inflammation in our body is the, first step to, I think, really like improving our health. So that's a really easy way to do it. And it comes down to like, there's so many different ways to prepare salmon and to cook it. So keep trying. If you hate salmon, I have had clients that have had to like plug their nose when they started eating salmon and now they can eat it semi-regularly. So if you're like, I hate salmon, I can't have it, I don't like how it smells, I don't like how it tastes, like try some of these different ways. And because they all taste different, like salmon cooked in the air fryer versus salmon like tuna fish style, or salmon in a salad with other things, like all those taste very different. So try out some new ways, maybe take one day a week where you try a salmon concoction or recipe, and just something is better than nothing too. So think of it like that as well. Thanks for joining, and y'all have a great week. Thanks, Kacey.